right, we're on live stream right now. Cool. Um, let's start worship. So yeah, so Joyce and Jessica are have graciously agreed to lead worship for us tonight. I'll pray for us to start, and then you girls can start worship. Sound good?
No.
Okay. Father God, I thank you so much for tonight, for Dennis and Emily, for bringing them here tonight, and for the experiences that you've given them, Lord, that they can share with us. We pray for your spirit to be with them, for you to use them to glorify you, Lord, and to make them known in the students' lives and in whoever's in the lives of whoever's watching on YouTube too, Lord. Pray that tonight would be a blessing to all of us, that you would use it for your purposes. We thank you that you are always worthy of our praise, whether it's through music or in our work, Lord, and everything that we do. I thank you for Jessica and Joyce. I pray that you bless their worship, you make it pleasing to you. We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
They can't hear. Can you guys hear us?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Joyce, you guys have to go really close to the mic.
Can we change technology? Yeah, can we change our device? Because the laptop we're using right now is not really good.
Okay.
Okay. Wait, we're gonna be right back. We're live. Okay, we'll start. You are the word of the beginning. Born with God, the Lord Most High. Your hidden glory and creation. Now revealed in you are Christ. What a beautiful name it is. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ. What a beautiful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus. You didn't want heaven without us. So Jesus, you brought heaven down. Your sin was great, your love was greater. What could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ. What a wonderful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a wonderful name it is, the name of Jesus. Death could not hold you, the veil torn it for you, to silence the ghost of sin and grave. The heavens are roaring, the praise of your glory, for you are raised to life again. You have no right, you have no equal, now and forever that you live. Yours is the kingdom, yours is the glory, yours is the name above all names. What a powerful name it is, what a powerful name it is, the name of Jesus Christ my Lord. What a powerful name it is, nothing can stand against. What a powerful name it is, the name of Jesus.
Amen.
The Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you, be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. The Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Amen. 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 Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you, and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give peace. Amen. 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 May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, in your family, in your children, in their children, in their children. May His presence go before you and behind you and beside you, all around you and within you. He is with you. He is with you in the morning, in the evening, in your coming, in your going. You're weeping, rejoicing, He's for you, He's for you. Amen. 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 Let's pray. Heavenly Father, God, I just thank you for this wonderful night, and thank you for the opportunity for career panel part 2. Thank you so much for bringing in all the career panelists that they're able to share about what they do in their lives and more about how they were able to meet you, Lord. And I just pray for tonight. I hope that you will be able to guide us and that you'll be with us. And just pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
All right, so one quick announcement just on YCG's part. So we want to welcome Will and George. They are here to check YCG out and to spend time with you guys and to know the youth and college students better. So yeah, so I mean, most of you students know Will and George already. So yeah, they're here. So we welcome you. Cool. Saraja, take us away.
All right, welcome everybody to day 2 of the Youth and College Career Panel. We are joined here by our 2 panelists, Dennis Z and Emily Rogers. I wanted to first and foremost welcome our speakers. Both Dennis and Emily we thank you for taking the time of your day to share with the youth. Today's event is a part of my final project for City to City, which is a program with Redeemer that calls for students that partake in the program to be for the city, to love the city, and to serve the city. So they're a nonprofit organization that prayerfully recruits, trains, and coaches and resources leaders to cultivate gospel movements in global cities through church planning. So thanks to Newtown, I was able to not only be sponsored for the course, take the course, read the readings, and it was a phenomenal experience. If anyone is interested in joining next term, please ask me more about it or Pastor Chris. And I thought this was really appropriate to be the final project for to culminate the semester, as during my youth, well, I'm still young, but back when I was in high school and college, there was a lot of emphasis in the college process, and maybe I felt like it would be great if outside of my friend circle, if something like a church or some other community was able to provide various speakers to share about their various careers. I saw a lot of friends who were lost about what they wanted to do. And then in my own small group, there's a lot of us who want to go back to school or want to change careers. So I thought this was really appropriate for to bring people from all walks of life to share how God led them to work. I think a lot of us feel that there's a lot of good speakers on YouTube, a lot of friends that we may have, but a lot of times they leave God out of the equation. And so I wanted to know, what's the essence of work? Why does God want us to work? Why is it important? And also how God has led each and every one of us differently to the career path that we have currently, or vocation, whether it be, you could be a student. And so today we have our 2 panelists. First is Dennis, who's a CPA and an entrepreneur. He's currently the Director of Finance for FedCap Inc., CEO and founder of Creative Study Zone LLC, board member at the Bronx Academy of Promise Charter School. He is a certified public accountant and studied at the University of Albany, which is SUNY, for those of you who are interested in going to a SUNY. And fun fact is, I think one of the fun facts is Dennis has 3 kids. And
That's what I used. Oh, I guess that wasn't
he was
that
born
fun.
in Hong Kong too. And he's currently visiting congregations. So without further ado, I'm going to give the panel the floor to Dennis. Dennis, you have 20 minutes, following which we'll go to a Q&A. And if anyone has any questions for the youth, please provide it to one of your leaders, whether it be Simone, Amber, Lo, George, please provide it to them. And then I will ask the panelists the questions after they speak. So Dennis, floor is yours.
Okay, welcome. Hello, everybody. Quick question, Surajit. Are there people watching? Are there young people watching that are not in this Zoom?
Yeah, there could be,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay, so I'm going to start this night by sharing a little bit about just my history, which Surajit really shared a lot already. But you guys kind of jot down if you guys want to ask me questions about what I'm going to share, because what I'm going to share tonight is really a lot of nuggets from the Bible. Why we want to do work. So I'm putting 3 questions up on the group chat. Okay, so I'm going to go through 3 points. Point 1 is work good? What work is best? How do we choose, right? And point 3, why does work suck then? And where's my hope? What's the hope going forward? And as Surajit said, my life, I went to school in the city, so I went to Bronx High School of Science. So if any young people have, that part of, how to navigate that, if there are young people that are in high school and you have that kind of struggles, feel free to, jot that down and ask questions away. And I went to school in Albany for a finance degree, but then I changed to accounting during the Enron crisis, okay? And then I went and worked in a CPA firm, did that for about 8 years. And then I couldn't stand the Wall Street hedge fund life. And then I founded Creative Study Zone, and that's where I met really good young people like Surajit. And my desire was to make a difference, make impact, right? So we founded a company that we believe did that. And then during that time, I became a board member of a charter school in the South Bronx. Okay, it was right on Inwood Avenue, so stone's throw away from Yankee Stadium, the home of the enemy baseball team, second best baseball team in New York, of course. First being the Mets, everyone knows that. And then while that was happening, we transitioned Creative Study Zone from the business to operate not full time. So then I became connected with an organization called FedCap. And FedCap is a great organization where we help people, it's a nonprofit where we help people overcome barriers to work. So while I talk about those 3 points from a Christian perspective, from what work is to a Christian, you guys can ask me questions how at various points of my life I made those decisions, how that played or did not play at that time. Okay, because 20 minutes, I won't have enough time to go through my whole life story. But feel free, anything that pings you, just ask away later. So those 3 questions, but the ultimate point is going to be, who do you work for, right? Who do you work for? Because the truth of the matter is, for us as Christians, there's no separation of work and life. There is no distinction. There's all of our lives belong. All things, not just our lives, but all things belong to God. So on that premise, I want to talk about is work good, right? So if you guys have your Bibles with me, or if you guys just throw up a screen, we can turn to Genesis 2. Okay, I'm gonna go kind of from 2 to 1 and then back to 2. So Genesis 2, you can see that in verse 1, thus the heavens and the earth were completed in their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. So first point, is work good? Yeah. If it's good for God, it's good for us, right? That's sure you guys have heard it, but really jot that down and know that work itself is good, right? So is rest, obviously, right? All work, no rest. Well, God gave us examples that we shouldn't do that. So we can dive into that more. We can study that more. And though this message is a little bit topical, write these verses down, chew on it, meditate on it, read it, look fully at the context, and then ask your leaders. So I kind of just gave Chris, I gave you more work now, okay? So, but which is a good thing, right? So dive
It's
into
good.
dive into the word and read it. God will answer, right? So God gave us work. So let's go to Genesis 1, right? So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground. So that's something that we're going to come back to, because you're going to see that's a very big premise on my other points later, and what we see, what work is best and why this work stinks, right? Or we perceive it as it stinks. Okay, so remember that, right? God created us in his own image, in his own image. And then he gave us work. He gave us work to subdue the earth, and increase and be fruitful, create families. But I'm not gonna get into that. Not everyone's called to be married and have families. So don't take that out of context. So but I'll leave it there. And then Genesis 2, back to Genesis 2, verse 15. The Lord took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to take care of it. That's really important to me. Okay, we when I see people destroying our earth or not taking care of it, especially people who claim to be Christian, to me always boggles my mind. Right? That was our after increasing in numbers, that was our job. Our job was to take care of this earth. Right? So think about it. So for us as Christians, that's something we should always care about. Taking care of this earth, right? Not to pollute, to be militant about it. No, probably not. But we should take care of our earth, his earth. So that's point one, is work good. I believe that work is good. So, and then 2, but what about now? Okay, what is our duty now, right? What does the Bible say about our work now? Because sometimes for us as young people or older people, we go through transitions always. Okay, just because I'm 39, okay, I'm still gonna go through transitions. Do I want to stay at VetCap? Do I think, or do I love where I am? Am I making the most impact? Am I making wise usage of my time? Right? That's still always consideration, right? Until we return home, that we have to labor. But I really want to draw our attention as Christians to Matthew 28, and that's the Great Commission. Okay, if you guys have time to look that up, Matthew 28, 16 to 20. Right? What does God say? Then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountains, and Jesus told them to go. And Jesus gave us authority, gave the disciples authority, and in that told us to basically tell everyone about Jesus. So for me, so far, that's what I see as work. That's what I see as work. Okay. So my work so far is making the gospel known. So that's really keen for me. Okay. And then I go to Luke 10, stay there eating and drinking whatever they give you, for the worker deserves his wages. I also oops, actually that's okay. I switch my verses around, but that's important too, because for me as a business owner, I use that, and I don't want to take it out of context because it was for the disciples when God sent the 72. But it reminds me that, hey, if all owners and all managers and all people treat people fairly and give people their wages, we don't really need laws to enact a living wage, right? It's part of that. But for you guys, for young people, as you starting out your career, that's something to not be shy about, right? As Christians, you shouldn't be a doormat. You deserve your wages, right? Fair. Okay, so it goes both sides. Management, we could go on all day. A union's necessary, a union's not necessary. I don't want to dive too deep, but just know that God throughout the Bible has been really clear and fair on work. And then point two, what work is best? And for that, I really go to 1 Corinthians 10:31 to 11 in verse 1. So wherever you eat, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. Do not cause anyone to stumble, whether Jews, Greeks, or the church of God, even as I try to please everyone in every way. For I am not seeking my own good, but the good of many, so that they may be saved. Follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. So that's really important. That's really important. I mean, right now, I'm looking at, people of different ages and different wants and different desires, right? So when you choose what work is best, or which school you want to go to, which major you should, really think upon that. Really think upon that. That whatever you do it for the glory of God. That's not a throwaway sentence. That's really not a throwaway verse. So I hope in Q&A you guys can ask a little bit more maybe on how I would select. Okay, but if I stay on this point a little bit, it's more like, should I go and work in a company that sells this, is vaping still popular with young people now that there's COVID? I don't know, but a year ago that was a major topic, right? Major topic, right? And in the beginning, the reason why I bring vaping up is, when it was first created, it was such a good product. It was known to be a good product because it would help people go and get off nicotine, or get off real cigarettes, right? But then we seen it kind of bastardized and taken out, and it's not the way it's intended. It's been abused, right? So why did I mention that? It just means that anything can be corrupted by our sinful nature, okay? Which is why I'm gonna go back to a few tenets. So for us as Christians, what are some steadfast grounds that we should hold on to, right? One is, well, God is the person, the God we serve, it's the King we serve, right? So everything we do should glorify him. So, and you guys we have to keep evaluating. right? It might have been good in 2003 to work in an e-cigarettes company, and now it might not be, right? Or it might bounce back again. Right? It's entirely you know, it requires wisdom. You know, it is working in the cannabis industry. A whole slew. We could go, we can debate that, right? So, but those are things that as Christians just remember those things, because it will require a lot of wisdom. And then I really want to draw your attention to Matthew 22. God really simplified a lot of things for us. No, we as humans, in our sin, we like to make things more important than they are, okay, or more complex than they are. But God just gave us 2 commandments, right? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul and all your mind. That's the first and greatest commandment. And then love your neighbors. Well, combine that with all the things we just talked about. Then you will know what work is good. Right? You will know what work is good. Yeah. So is work good? Yes, work is good. Which work should you choose? Anything. Anything that fulfills those 2 commandments, that allows you to love the Lord with all your heart, with all your mind. You know, right? So far everything's been really simple. And once again, people who are listening, please ask me in Q&A. How am I doing for time, Surajit? You time checking me? Okay, good. And then Romans 11, right? We're living sacrifices. Okay, just jot that down. Read Romans 11, right? Our whole bodies belong to God. You know, and you will, if you meditate on His word, you will renew your mind, and you'll know His good, pleasing, and perfect will. Okay, so now the point 3 is, why does work suck? Why do we hate work? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I remember in my immature days, right after college. Okay, so I'm saying myself. I'm not saying whoever's just coming out of college is immature, but myself, I was quite immature, because I remember my family asking me almost every day, every time they see me, "How's work today?" My automatic answer was, "Work sucked." Literally, that was my answer every single time. I said work sucked. Why? Because of sin, right? I didn't look at work as part of my life and my devotion and my worship to the Lord. I didn't look at that. I looked at my work as something, as me to make a paycheck so I can buy my you know, I love cars, so right away my first purchase was a fancy car, right? So that was that's who I served, right? So that's why I kept saying work sucked. So why does work suck for a lot? Once again, it's sin, right? It's because, you know, you gotta go back to what is sin? Lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. Okay? Lust of flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. So for me, work was to fulfill all of that, all of those things. Fulfill my master, the master that I had to get more money so I could do things that please my body, you know, that I could wear the nicest clothes. I could have prestige. I wanted to work at the biggest company. I wanted to be, you know, I don't use that word anymore. I want to be the baller. I want to be, you know, right now you guys probably say things like do things for clout, right? You know, so you have different things, but it's all the same sin, right? Since the beginning of time, it's the same. Okay, and until we go home, it's going to be the same, right? Lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. Remember, for us, you know, and anyone out there, if you're having trouble and not finding fulfillment in your work, I must ask, do you give your life to Christ yet? Okay, and if you haven't, and you don't know why why Christians are so passionate about that I serve this God and I say that I actually work for the King. You wonder what that means. Please talk to your brothers and sisters and your leaders here, please. Okay, don't or if you're a Christian, right, just remember that, hold back and hold fast to that. In this crazy time now, we talk about social justice and doing things that are good for others. Well, as Christians, that's basic. That is common grace. Doing good for others is basic. Why? Because God created all of us in the image of God. He created all of us in the image of Him. So guess what? And God told us to love God and love our neighbors. So you will have no choice but to care about other people if you're a true Christian, right? So you don't need to worry about the fruit. You don't have to worry about the symptom of doing good. Just worry about loving God with all your heart, mind, soul, and spirit, and then worry about loving your neighbors. And I promise you that your fruit will be all the good things that people want, that you will find fulfillment. You guaranteed, okay? Guaranteed. Because you're once again, your contentment is not the lust of your flesh, not the lust of your eyes, and not the pride of your life. Okay, right? That because that once again. So for us as Christians, hold fast on that. And if anyone's not a Christian out there, hey, please ask, find out, right? Find out why we're so crazy for this Savior, right? Because we know what we've been saved from, okay, and what we've been saved for, okay. And then I want to remind you guys, I love it. I see a lot of leaders here, right? Support your pastor, support your church leadership, okay. It's that's the hardest job. Like for us, we talk about fair wage, okay? I mean, I don't know how your church politics works, okay? But I know pastors don't, other than prosperity gospel pastors, they're not rolling in laps of luxury, right? So we as lay people, what can we do to support our leaders, right? Who have chosen to serve God as also their vocation on earth. Right, so those are the encouragements I leave you with, give to you, and that's the hope, right? So work sucks. Why? Because of sin. Where's the hope? In Christ, right? Christ, because if we love Him, we serve Him, you'll find your fulfillment. And it's funny, right? Coronavirus did something. This pandemic did something. This finally elevated professions and vocations that people used to throw away and stink on. But God never did, right? Because we're all in His image. But now we want to celebrate the friendly worker at BJ still working away to make sure shelves are stocked, right? And the custodians now cleaning, every half an hour, right? But we those are positions that people used to just like, oh, you're nobody. Well, no. Well, and we would, if any of us did that, then well, may God help us and change our hearts, right? But this pandemic really allowed everyone to see that everyone has intrinsic value, right? Why? Because once again, we are created in God's image, okay? And your vocation, whatever job you choose, is real simple, okay? Make sure it glorifies the Lord, and make sure you get to do your 2 commandments. So that's about it for me. Yeah, I gave you guys a lot of verses, but I can always email that out. But I'm sure you guys have heard these verses a million times. Every time anyone talks about work, you're gonna drop these things. But if you spend time and read, you'll see more messages from it. God will speak to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for that. We will now go to a
Amen.
time of Q&A, and amen, yes. So our first question is, what does a CPA do?
Sure. A CPA is the acronym is Certified Public Accountant. So by nature, a CPA signs off on financial statements. Okay, so if you're a company, you make financial statements, but stakeholders don't know if they can be trusted. So then you find someone that's independent, an auditor, comes and then we we assess, we do certain tests, test of controls or test a substantive test, and after testing we go, oh, the financial statements are represented fairly, materially fairly, and you can rely upon these. A CPA, depending on the type of the audit, doesn't necessarily check for fraud, or things specifically, depending on the level of engagement. But you can, but most of the time it's about making sure that the financial statements are represented fairly. Now, a lot of CPA firms will, as a side business, will also do taxes, other bookkeeping work. So a lot of times when you see CPAs, that's what it means. Also financial advice, right? Because that's just part of the a realm, as an accountant. Yeah.
Great. What education level does one need to attain for that to become a
Sure.
CPA?
Right now, I believe a CPA requires 150 hours in the state of New York. So you need your master's program. I graduated college in 2003. So as grandfathered in, I did not need to do my master's. So I don't have a master's in accounting, but you will need it now in order. Back in my day, we needed to do 2 years of audit experience. But now you can get your accounting experience in a variety of avenues. So you can do tax, you can do bookkeeping, but before it was specifically in audit.
Cool. What are
And then you
some
have to,
pros and
then you have to take a test. Then you take the test for the CPA exam, and then you're certified. Yes.
and you have to retake the test every certain amount
No,
of
you
years?
just do CPE. That's called continuing professional education. So every year I have to do classes, brush up on my ethics, things like that. Mhm.
Great. What are some pros and cons of being a CPA? And when we say pros and cons, we mean loves and challenges.
Sure. Now, you got to love logic and numbers, right? Because it's, you're talking about financial statements. You're doing a lot of schedules. You gotta care about showing things accurately. So if you don't like that, you don't like to work with spreadsheets, you don't really want to be, you want to work with your hands as opposed to numbers and spreadsheets, then that'll be a con. But if you love that, then that'll be a pro. For me, I personally did not love the business of being in a business of CPA. That's why I moved out of it, and I, became an entrepreneur, and now I lead finance department, but also doing a lot of business development work, which is really trading upon my entrepreneur experience.
Great. How does your faith connect with your job or when you were doing more full-time CPA stuff as a CPA?
Yeah, it was a struggle. I will tell you because for me at that time, I was not yet married, right? Just dating my wife, but after work on Thursdays, Fridays, a lot of happy hours, right? So it was a struggle, a lot of struggle to not waste funds, and so like I shared before, it's really it was hard. It was a struggle because I really was after different things at that time. At that time in my life, I was really after you know flesh, eyes, and the pride of life. But there was still times of clarity by God's grace, that God still allowed me to maybe help a coworker out and spend time and at lunch, still got a chance to share Christ. But it wasn't, it was more through not good intentionality, I would say. Meaning it was more because I grew up in church, I've been a Christian for a long time, so it kind of came out naturally, right? But it wasn't intentional. So that's what I would recommend, to make sure that your evangelism is intentional. Truly pray for your coworkers. But I didn't really do that. So that was like, and God, he allowed me to change.
Amen to that. Why did you decide to start your own business?
Sure. So 2008, no, 2007 was the first financial crisis. So I was already disillusioned with hedge funds and accounting. And in 2010 was the mortgage crisis of 2010. And then I was really fed up because I saw a lot of hedge funds tranche all the mortgages, bad mortgages. And I saw some winners, some funds won, made a lot of money, but I also saw a lot of people devastated when that market collapsed. So I left. I took some months off, studied for the CPA, because up until that time was busy not studying. So it didn't pass. It took me like years to pass. And I finally sat down, and one summer I passed it. So that tells you if you study, it works, study. Then I decided to, should I go back to work, look for a job at a CPA firm or not? And then I started coaching basketball, young people basketball, and then I was teaching Sunday school. I just saw a lot of young people, especially in the Asian community, doing being forced to go to certain tutoring centers or being forced to study, but no fulfillment. And for me, my experiences in Bronx Science, I knew that lifestyle. I was thankful that my parents didn't have the funds to send me to a tutoring center, so I never went. But I knew all my friends that did, and they kind of had horrible experiences. And then when I started mentoring a lot of young people, I was like, wow, you guys all have such horrible experiences. Why? But some have great experiences, right? And I was like, it was because the people who wanted to be there had great experiences, and it was a great product. But the kids who didn't want to be there wasn't getting enough value. So I decided to found Creative Study Zone, a company that would really help young people think about why they wanted to go to school, why they wanted to actually pursue a certain career. Because the worst thing that I thought young people would be was to get into massive debt and come out with a degree that you didn't really want, or in a career profession you didn't really want. I thought that would be a travesty. So I kind of made it Creative Study Zone and my mission to make sure young people didn't have to do that, and parents didn't have to do that. Because parents, remember, they often do that because they want the best for the young people, their kids, and they want security, and that's nothing wrong. That's great, right? But my message to them also was, in fact, there's no security. Once again, because as a Christian, I know that there's no hope in this world, right? There's no hope. You can't put your trust in anything of this world. It will disappoint you, right? Same thing with a career, right? So I try to tell parents that, and that instead, what we should do is work on young people's character, right? Work on working hard. Don't be afraid of working hard, right? So for Creative Study Zone, we came up with a algorithm: passion plus training plus skill set equals career, right? So what are you passionate about? And I love the word passion, right? If you look at the root word comes from Christ, the passion of Christ, right? Are you willing to suffer for your dream? If you are, then that's your passion. Then you can mix that with the skill set and your training that you need, and that becomes your career, right? But without that passion, then it becomes, then work really sucks because, then you just, you just kind of blowing along with the wind. Now, is there good to that too? There is. Don't forget, right? All the disciples had a vocation, right? They didn't, because there's nothing wrong with that either, right? You work and you get a fair day's wage, and you go on and you keep doing your real work, which is serving God, right? So there's nothing wrong with that too, but it depends on what God's made you, right? So that's your wisdom again, right? You have to decide, how did God make me? Should I just be a good 9-to-5 job, and then spend all my days so I can devote more for church, because it's a good, solid job, and I don't have to devote too much. There's no overtime, right? There's merit to that too, right? There's merit to that. But once again, anything decision you make, and I know I'm going off a little topic from the question, but any decision you make, my recommendation is make it an active decision. Active decision. Do not let the wind blow you. Okay, make it active. Like, oh, I'm actively finding a very simple 9-to-5 job so I may love the people I work with and then serve the rest of my days. Awesome. Okay. Or know what? No, God gave me these skills, these talents. I got to be the next influencer of blah blah blah. Then go, please do that. As long as you're fulfilling God's 2 commandments, do it, right? And don't look back, right? But once again, basic theme is, who do you serve? Better be the King if you're a Christian.
Amen. I think this is our last question for now. What was that transition like from going from a CPA firm to starting your own business? And I think maybe the question is two-parted. Maybe one side is analyzing it from a faith perspective, because you did mention in your story, at first there was a lot of sin component while you were in that CPA firm, and then you transitioned to Creative Study Zone. And I think the other aspect is from a career standpoint. You went from a solid job as a CPA, stable 9-to-5, to starting a business, which is not stable.
Yeah. Okay, so really a lot of questions there. My change was no fulfillment. I saw the there was sin while I was in my more immaturity, but I don't want to make it sound like I was selling drugs or something, but so it wasn't that, but once again, not living for the King. But when I saw the crises, God just started talking to me, started touching my heart, and wanting me to make sure I serve him, but more importantly for me, it wasn't so deep. Looking back, one can always be a revisionist and make it so deep. It really wasn't. I didn't really want to be in the business of CPA. I loved helping young people, and I didn't have kids at the time. My wife had a great stable job. I had, so things just happened, and I had a friend that owned that had a space, and I was able to sublet the space without a lease, right? So I was able to engage and enter into business very cheaply. Okay, so it was calculated risks. So for you, I know, Vincent, we were talking about you starting a sneaker business, right? You have to deduce what's your ROI, what's your risk that you're willing to carry, right? And you go and then you go for it, right? But in my case there, I was really able to kind of hybrid it, so that's what I was able to do. So I'm immensely grateful for all the help that I received as a young business person, right? Starting from God, right? God just opened doors. My wife, great support. I met one of the co-founders, Dr. Villani, who really had these great philosophies. Leo Lee, coach of the Rockets, the basketball team I was helping coach, had owned the furniture space that I sublet with. So all these things kind of worked into play. And then Surajit, I met, Surajit, before Surajit popped on, I shared that he's one of the first students at CSE. His father was an immense supporter of our program, right? Supported us, through his own hard-earned dollars as a customer, right? So all these things really conspired to make it happen, right? So that's all glory to God.
Yes, amen. All glory to God. And I think it also shows something we touched on last week too, with networking and how that also helps out too. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for sharing. If there's any other questions that you have for Dennis, continue to share them to your leaders, and we'll make sure to get it to him today. If not, then by email for sure. So I believe, Dennis, it'll be okay for if any of the youth have any questions that they could reach out via email.
Yes, definitely. You just give him my email. But Khalik,
Sure.
Where's Khalik? I just saw your message. Hey, you were poor in your accounting classes. Don't worry. I was really poor in my accounting classes. But the question I have for you is, why are you poor? Are you not studying? Then it starts with that, right? For me, I was poor in my classes because I'm quite ashamed to say that I fell asleep in many of the classes. I balanced it out with all my classes that required presentations. I was great with presentations. So as a matter of fact, it was really bad. Other people did other work, and then I just made presentations. I got A's on those classes and then D's on the other ones. So lesson is, gotta study.
Yes. All right. Yes. Study, everybody. Work hard. Thank you so much, Dennis. We really appreciate the time. We're going to go on to our next guest speaker, who is Emily Rogers, who many of you know from the Newtown community and Elmhurst community. Yes, as Newtown was the former name of Elmhurst. She is an elementary school teacher, formerly a teacher at the Department of Education, but she also has a side hustle, which is being a TPT material creator. She currently attends church at the Elm here in Elmhurst, Queens. She has licenses so that she could be a teacher in New York, which is a childhood 1 to 6, students with disabilities 1 to 6, and literacy B to 12. She did her graduate studies at the State University of New York, Geneseo, another SUNY, and her undergrad too. And the fun fact is she grew up in Orange County, not California, but New York, home to probably the highest taxes in the state. And without further ado, we're gonna go and toss it to Emily.
Hi guys, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, Surajit, for that warm welcome. It's so good to see all of your faces. I know many of you. I would just like you to take just a minute right now, if you could type into the chat, who your favorite teacher was, or not, you don't have to mention the name, but why they were your favorite teacher. I just want to see what you guys are thinking right now and what you think of teachers too. So it could be a trait that you remember about a teacher. It could be they did an awesome lesson or they really cared about you. I figured I was going to get that, Ian, from you. Michael, I like that one. Sauce says people before students. My aerospace teacher, very cool. Well, that's awesome, Stacy. I like that one about your geometry teacher helping you go from a 75 to an 83. That's amazing. Aw, that's so sweet, Danielle, that your professor remembered your name too. I feel like it's the little things, it seems, and also the big things too. So Amber, even the tough moments where you get called out by your teachers too. These are good though. Thank you for sharing all these things about teachers. So we come with a lot of experience about teachers, where we know a lot about teachers because we went through school. Unlike Dennis, who is a CPA, a lot of people don't know a lot about his job, but we've spent a lot of time, even if we're not a teacher, observing teachers. So we kind of think we know what's going on with teachers too. So I'm just going to share a little bit more about teachers and what they do and why they do it. And I'm just going to begin. So I'm just going to start off with why I decided to go into teaching. So I kind of always wanted to be a teacher. I used to like play with dolls and line them up, and I had like a little classroom in the corner of my living room. I used to make posters, and I didn't want my mom to take any of them down. So I had like this growing classroom in the corner of my living room when I was growing up. All my American Girl dolls became really smart because of it. And then a little bit more seriously now, I kind of hit high school, and you know how like every parent wants you to go into medicine? You know, my mom's like, you have to go be a doctor, like go be a doctor. So I spent like 3 or 4 years in high school studying, like really getting into the sciences. I did like a science research experiment with a professor from NYU. I took AP Bio. I applied to Geneseo as a bio major, and then, just kidding, Mom, I decided to go into teaching instead. So as I was signing up for my classes for summer orientation, I just switched into the teaching field because I was like, you know what, this is what I'm really passionate about. This is what I want to do. Before then, my parents had been doing foster care for about a year beforehand. So it was my senior year of high school. So we had a couple of kids coming through the house. And something that I noticed was that a lot of them were just really behind in their schooling career, really not able to read, really didn't like school. I had one foster brother tell me, he's now graduated high school, which is amazing. He's a high school graduate and he's 18. But when he was 10 years old, he told me that he wanted to become like a sanitizer person on the back of like cleaning the floors at BJ's, basically. You know, like you sit on the machine. I don't know what it's called, but the fact that like he couldn't dream bigger than that at 10 years old, that was something that has stuck with me ever since. As you can probably guess or conjure up, because he was in the foster care system, he had a hard home life. But that doesn't mean that he shouldn't have teachers that invest in him and tell him that he can dream bigger than that he can do more than that he has a bigger skill set than that he is special. And not that job is a bad job, but at 10 years old, there are so many dreams that you want a kid to have, and not just to limit themselves to something. So I think that's kind of where I started getting my drive, started really thinking about teaching. So then what college kind of looked like for me, I did my undergrad at Geneseo. I did my master's at Geneseo. I did it in 5 years. So I did a dual certification program where I started off with childhood and special ed. If any of you are thinking about going into teaching, a dual certification program in undergrad is just really, really good because it kind of makes you a little bit more marketable. And then when you get your master's, because you have to in New York State, sadly, well, it's a good thing, but it's also a lot of time and maybe a lot of money too. Then you will come out with more certifications, and it can make you more marketable too, which is really good as well. And then you get other skill sets. Something that I definitely recommend is for any teacher to get a special ed certification. I think it's just really important, especially if you're thinking about teaching in a classroom, because so many students that you will see, whether you're a kindergarten teacher, whether you're a high school chemistry teacher, you will see students with disabilities in your classroom, and you will need to know how to come and really like teach them and walk alongside them in that way too. And it's not just an elementary school, it's all throughout school. So that's something that you might want to think about. Also, if you have any questions while I'm speaking on something, you can also just direct them in the chat too. I can see it right here. So you guys can just reach out there as well. I have a couple of different certifications. I went through student teaching. I was a really shy kid, a really shy student. I really wasn't sure how student teaching was going to go for me. But when I went in there, I just really loved it. I fell in love with the kids, and I felt like I really found something that I loved. I found a calling that I loved. I remember when I was younger, I actually used to cry about never having a talent. I was like 5 years old or 6 years old. I like to think a lot when I was little, I guess. So I would just like, I remember one day, and I went down and I talked to my dad, and I was crying because I was like, Dad, everybody else has talents and I have none. My only talent is that I work hard. And I was like, that is such a crappy talent. I don't think that it's a crappy talent now, but at the time I was just really bummed out. There were people who were good at math, people who could sing, people who were good at art, and I was good at nothing. I felt like I could work really, really hard and be like slightly above average, but I was just like not really great at anything, like in particular. But teaching seemed to be a calling, which was really, really cool. During my student teaching experience, it's kind of divided into like a 15-week period where you take on one classroom and then you take on another, and it's in your certification areas. So I did like a K-3 special ed placement, and then I did a 6th grade placement. I think the biggest takeaway that I learned from that is to really make myself available to my students, to really get to know my students, and to make time for them, like during lunchtime or during after school. So those were some of the things that I did. Like I actually would sit there during lunch with my students to get to know them. So I would go to lunch with them sometimes. Also, I just didn't go into the teacher's room. I was like, I don't need more friends. I just want to like meet my students and cultivate relationships. And it was really cool because I was really able to cultivate relationships with my students. I mean, at the same time, I'm kind of at an advantage right now because I am 21 years old. So they do think I'm super cool still. And now I'm 25 and I think I still got that coolness factor. But don't worry, like 10 years from now, I will not be cool anymore. So I have to like I have to use the coolness that I have right now. The fact that they want to be here with me because they think that I'm like young. I've had students that thought I was 17 before. So it works out to my advantage, I guess, because they want to hang out with me. So that was kind of what I gleaned from my student teaching experience. There's even, during the second 7 weeks, I was like, you know what, we're gonna form a club. So we made a newspaper club. Little did I know how long it takes. I had never done anything with newspaper before. It was great, and it ended up to be a great like 50-page newspaper where the students were like engaged in each other's writing. But I made friends with the copier that night because I was just copying things until like 11 p.m. at night. So I think the point being is that to meet the students' needs of where you're at. And to go back to the question that I asked earlier, these are all great things. And I love how you mentioned about your favorite teachers. And I think like something that I do think about every day is like, be the teacher that you wish you had, or be the teacher that like really inspired you. And I think those are all good things. At the same time though, I think that we also need to realize that we are different from our students, and the fact that something that you might have needed as a child or as a student might be very different from the students that you are teaching. So to really get to know your students, and I think that's the biggest thing. I was just going for interviews earlier in like June, and they would ask me about classroom management. And I just said, like, there's so many things about classroom management. How do you handle a child's behavior? But at the end of the day, it's about rapport, forming relationships with them, and really having them to trust you, and and by building that trust, they will then respect you too. And you don't need a clip chart. They don't need to know that their behavior is really, really bad, but really invest in them, to know them, and to really love them and care for them. So after jumping out of Geneseo into the rural area, I was tired of the cows and I wanted to go to the big city. So I ended up in Queens, and this is where I met all you lovely people, which I'm so grateful for. And it has been a wonderful 2 years to be able to be with you guys, get to know you guys. I came down here, and it was one of my first interviews actually, and it was at a school in Corona. And as I was sitting on the bench, I had never gotten a feeling before, but I sat down there. It's like, I think I'm supposed to be here. And I had never gotten that feeling in college about going to the right school. At first, when I went to Geneseo, I thought I made a terrible mistake. and I cried for the first 49 days that I was there. It got better though, and I made some great friends, but I'd never gotten that feeling of like, this is the place where I'm supposed to be. However, when I was sitting at that bench at that school in Corona, I was like, I think this is where I'm supposed to be. And I hadn't even met anybody yet, which was kind of weird. Afterwards, I'd gotten the job within a really short span of time. I was really blessed. God gave me a job before I even finished my master's. So that was something that I didn't need to worry about. I was able to move in with Simone. So I was her living room roommate for a year. Talk about unconventional, but so cool. The fact that it worked out right away and we were able to be together. And I really felt God's call to bring me here to the city. And I did pray that God would close the door, because I said, you know how much I want to be here. If this is not what you have for me at this time, please close the door, because I will run after it. And he actually made it quite easy for me to get my job. And it was my dream grade, which was teaching upper elementary. I taught 5th grade. I taught what I would like to say the most amazing kids in the universe. I think that I learned more from them than they learned from me. We just had a wonderful year with each other. I taught a dual language side-by-side model. So I had 2 different rotating classes every other day. And so I only had my students I had 45 students. So it was a unique experience in that sense. I learned so much from them in the sense that in the room, I had never been the only white person in the room before. And in my teaching experience, this was the first time that I was the only white person in the room. And sometimes to talk about topics that are really hard to talk about, like we were talking about, I don't even know how it came up. And I did not try to get to this realm of questioning, but my students, we were having a discussion circle in the morning. So we would talk about different issues. And I think I asked, what is something that makes you really, really mad? And I wasn't sure what I was going to get as a response. You know, they're 10, they're 11, they can be a little angsty. Maybe they're really mad that they couldn't get their mom made them do something, or they couldn't get a cool designer shirt or whatever. But they actually, they thought about the question so much more deeply than I was expecting them to. And they started talking about what it's like to be undocumented, or to have family members that are undocumented. And I just remember sitting in that conversation, and I told them, I cannot speak in this instance, but I can listen. I have so much to learn from you. I do not know it all. And if I ask a question, or if I say something that is not right, I will apologize about it. And we were able to have such a great discussion. And I realized that I think at first I was really nervous that like, oh, I don't know what to do with this. I don't have experience in this area. Like white people are the ones that are the oppressors in this instance. And a lot of times I didn't know what to do with this information of like, oh, how do I provide a good solution? And I think that was what they didn't need. They didn't need a good solution. They just wanted me to listen. They trusted me, so they wanted to share this information with me. It wasn't like I was prying it from them. I love 5th grade, and they were amazing students. I then jumped down to 1st grade. 1st grade was great, but it's a little too young for me. And I learned that very quickly on. I was like, oh darn, I need like 5th or 6th grade, because I'm in the land of boogers and band-aids and tears. Like little people, big feelings. And I am not very good with little people, big feelings. So this coming year, I will be teaching 6th grade, which I'm very excited about, because they're bigger people with big feelings too, but not as many band-aids or boogers, I hope. We'll see. But even in teaching 5th grade, I really felt that it was actually much easier to, I guess the word would be evangelize, if you will, but I wasn't even trying to evangelize, just like living an authentic life. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that happen when you live a life of authenticity. I think that kids get interested in what you're doing and why you're doing it. I always told them that You need to have, like we talk about integrity, you know, doing the right thing when nobody's watching, and they would be able to repeat it back to me. And I just talked about like, what if you saw me down the street and you saw me and I was doing something that that I shouldn't, you know, that I tell you not to do. They're like, I wouldn't really want to listen to you. It's like, exactly. So I live the same life that I live here in the classroom, I live on the street. So if you see me on the street, I will be doing the same exact thing, because I need to be a good representative for you in that way. And I had students ask me questions about what, like what I believe or what my religion is. I have a tattoo on my arm, and I kind of intentionally put it there on purpose. Kids get really curious about things. They realized that I had a tattoo before my own dad did. My dad didn't realize it for a year. That was a really awkward conversation. But for the kids, they like, it was March. I had like, I pulled up my sleeve a little bit because I was getting hot, because I kind of like move around the room and I teach a little bit. I do like 10,000 steps a day running around the classroom. It's really fun. But they know that as soon as I pulled up my sleeve, I heard, oh my God, Miss Rogers got a tattoo. And I'm like, oh boy. So, you know, I just keep teaching. Like, of course, they're going to make comments. But the reason why I did it is because it says redeemed on it. And so it's a very, it's a Christian, whatever you want to call it. It's something that can only lend itself to talking about the gospel, because in no other sense does it make sense, which is why I put it on my arm. So I had one student who is going to be the next president of the United States. So please vote for her in 20 years. She's great. She will be a great president. She came up to me and she was like, what's this on your arm? You know, so we're like talking about it. And I'm like, what does it say? It's a religious tattoo. But what does it say? I'm like, okay, it says redeemed. Okay, so can you tell me what that means? And then I just said, and I explained what the word means. And she asked, are you Catholic? Because she doesn't usually use that word in English. Said, no, I'm not Catholic, but I am Christian. And then she asked me about Jesus, which was really cool. I was able to share the gospel with her of how Jesus has impacted my life on the spot. I think Michael, because I reached out to Michael about questions, because I know, Michael, you want to be a teacher, and you said like conflicts with faith. And I remember in that moment being a little bit nervous too, like, how much do I share of this? Like, I literally tried to make it like a closed framed conversation as much as possible, because I wasn't really sure how far I could go. But the conversation went fine. She was even able to come to Joy Camp. And so many of you have met her. So many of you have met her. She came to Joy Camp after I kind of shared the gospel with her, which was really cool. I was able to spend a month with her and share the gospel because of the ministry that Newtown has there, which is really cool. And it's impacting the lives of students in Corona and Elmhurst for the better, which is amazing. But it's because of the relationship that I was able to cultivate with her from the beginning. And I think the biggest takeaway in that is that to be the teacher that I wish that that I had is not the teacher that this student needed. She needed a different sort of teacher in this instance, a teacher that knew her, that was able to meet the needs that she had. Like, she had anxiety, she had different things, and maybe that wasn't exactly the teacher that I needed for myself when I was younger. But I think that's the point, that you're meeting your students with where they are at, and really cultivating the culture that they have at home and bringing their parents on board. Even this year, I will be a little bit vulnerable. It was really hard. I thought about leaving the teaching field altogether by November. I was just like, this is so hard. I had a really difficult teacher pairing. I had lovely students, but just a lot of high needs in the classroom. And by October, my like spark, my love for teaching was really put out. And that was really hard because I was only teaching for like a year. And as you can tell, like I love 5th grade. I love that year. It was definitely challenging, to say the least. A lot of prayer went into it too. There was even one point where I had found a job upstate in October. And I was almost hired. And then I said, no, I cannot take this job. I think it was because I knew that was not God's will for me. I was trying to jump the gun. But I believe that the Lord was calling me to stay. And I think that also takes me to another point in just talking about God's active versus God's passive will. So oftentimes when we think about God and like God leading me somewhere and bringing me into a place, like if he brings me there, then I should be there, right? Or like if it's so easy, then like shouldn't I just go? But I think that we need to be actively seeking his will, not just passively, because passive would be like, oh, I got here. God must want me here then. But to really pray, even hard prayers sometimes of, do you want me here? And if you do not want me here, please close the door right now, Lord. He did not exactly close the door, which made this a really hard instance, I feel like. But I did get a note from a friend that said, you were made to do hard things. And I knew that I needed to stay for those students, to champion those students in the season, even though it was really hard. I think that the God that we serve is an amazing God, period. And then even that he's in so much that he's able to show us the work that we, that even when we don't do the work that we need to do, like when I was in 5th grade, when I taught 5th grade, I felt like I was really able to connect with my students. They would come up for lunch all the time. I know all the BTS songs from them. I can probably not dance well, but I could dance to many of them because my students wanted me to dance to them. They are bad though, so you don't want to see that. But then in 1st grade, I was really, really burnt out. And I just remember thinking, I would never be that teacher. And that was really hard to be in that place. It was amazing though, because even in doing that, God allowed me to cultivate good relationships with my kids, even though I didn't feel like I was present with them. They still really trusted me. I felt like they loved me so well, even though during that season in my career professionally, it was really hard for me to even go to work. I was anxious about going to work all the time. And I felt like I was just failing as a teacher. Even in that though, even when COVID hit, I was still able to cultivate relationships with my student. There was one student, and I think that this is another good story, especially if you're going into teaching. I had one student, and we'll call her Melissa. Melissa was a little pipsqueak. She's a very cute little girl. Melissa had some concerns because she couldn't raise her hand to tell me that she needed to go to the bathroom. She would like start shaking. She wasn't able to answer discussion questions in the classroom. When I would ask her questions, she was not labeled as an English language learner, leading me to believe that maybe she had some sort of disability. I remember working with her. I'm the special ed teacher in the room. Sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier. And what the interventions that I was doing at the time just were not working for her. I remember sitting with her mom in February, because that's when promotion and doubt letters go out, meaning that your child should repeat the grade. And I just remember the mom really wanting to help her child. She's like, what can I do? What can I do? And so we suggested maybe counseling would help her, because she was just a really different student at home versus school. As we kept talking, she went to 6 counseling sessions, and she was a completely different student. She went from not even reading books to reading above grade level. So she's reading like mid-2nd grade level. Melissa is doing great, and she is ready for 2nd grade. But in February, she was reading kindergarten level. So it just goes to show that the social emotional connection for students is so important. And just by a couple of counseling sessions, she does not have a disability. She is not an English language learner. She just needed, to learn how to handle emotions, how to process different things. And I think that's one of the big things too, is not to label a child or think that a child can or can't do something. You allow a child to show you what they got, and you provide them supports that they need. And that was such a great reminder that she just needed a little extra boost, that she just needed a little extra support. And I think that that shows that all students are different. Let me see if I have anything else that I want to share. I will leave you with one last story. I had one student, we'll call him Steven. Steven was a little boy. He came to my class in the middle of the year in 5th grade. And he was really, really smart, like schooled me in math. I was scared to teach math lessons because I knew that if something was wrong, he would definitely tell me. He was really polite about it, but he would be like, Ms. Rogers, I think the answer there is actually 67 and not 63. And I'm like, oh shoot, like I need to go back to college, man. Oh my gosh. So even though every day I was petrified to teach math, he was just so gifted, but he was not using the gifts that he had, which was really hard to see. And I was trying to get to the bottom of it. So I'd ask him questions of like, hey, so can you tell me more about like why you're not doing work? And he'd come up with elaborate stories. But I think that teachers, and I'm sure parents can attest to this too, that they're great at figuring out lies when kids are lying, especially 5th grade lies. They're not that elaborate. So I was just like, oh, interesting, you know, and I would talk to him more, kind of talk to his mom. And I just got this picture of he really didn't have space at home to do work, or he felt like he didn't have the space at home. So I wasn't about to change the entire standard for him in the sense that like, oh, you don't have to complete homework because that's something that I cannot do. However, I told him that I will make my lunchtimes available to you every single day for you to do work. Because I believe in you. You can be something so much bigger than what you're imagining right now, because he had no dreams for who he could be or what his life could be. He started coming every single day to lunch. And that was how kind of like my lunch became this party room where we were dancing to BTS. But beforehand, it was just a room for Steven to finish his work. And by the end of the year, he told me that he was going to be a doctor. And I believe that he will be an amazing doctor. And he gave me a single rose on the last day of school and cried. So yeah, so those are the stories though of students who are all very different from each other and needed all very different supports. But the answer was to be the teacher that the child needs you to be for them. I'm so thankful that God brought me here to Queens. I really care about equity in education, and I know that these upcoming teachers that I see in this room care about equity for their students as well. If you want to talk more about good books about equity in education, I know that that's like a completely tangent, like another thought for the night. I can recommend some to you if you want to talk more about just the education field in general and different things that are going on in the education field and how to be a teacher for the students in your community. I would love to talk to you. I definitely do not have all the answers. I have very few answers, but I think that the answers start with the students that we serve right in front of them. And how we love them with Christ-centered love, and how that really does bring about results. At the end of the day, teachers have an immense responsibility. De Blasio might have said that we're glorified babysitters, and Michael, for you going into the teaching field, that's something that's extremely disappointing. You will be more than a glorified babysitter. You will be a person that cultivates dreams for the next generation. You might be the only safe space that a child has in a school, in their life. you might be the only person that understands a child, but that is the biggest impact that you can have as a teacher. And even though teaching is hard and there are a lot of politics involved, at the end of the day, I do not regret going into the teaching field. I would recommend the teaching field for anybody if that is your heart, to create spaces for students, because that's what our job is at the end of the day, and to foster those relationships with them. Thank you, guys.
Great, thank you so much, Emily. And we're gonna go to a time of question and answers. So the first question for you is strategies on capturing and keeping the kids' attention.
That's good. So I think that the biggest thing here is screaming does not work. Yelling does not work. It does work sometimes in the sense that, like, if you yell once in the entire year, the kids will listen because they are scared. That happened once. I had the flu and I yelled once and they're like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm sick." So then they respected me, but yelling does really not work. Or capture attention in any way, shape, or form. I think it's a matter of the students that you're serving and really getting their sense of humor, trying to figure out who they are as people. I feel like for like upper elementary, they kind of like the low key, a little bit, not savage, but like slightly, like for instance, one time I had students that I saw flirting in my classroom. Imagine that in 5th grade. So I just went up to them and I was like, "Hello, what do we have here?" And they were like, "Oh," and then they went right back to the work. They're like, "I'm getting scissors." And I'm like, "We're doing math. Why do you need scissors?" They're like, "Oh, okay." And then they go back. But it's the way that you present a situation to them and whether or not they're going to get defensive about it. I think that the first, I think it's apparently it's scientifically proven. I did not go into science, so I don't know if this is true or not. But if you, within the first 3 minutes, a speaker or a teacher captures people's attention. So if you don't reel it in right away, then your students are no longer listening to you. So to have like a quick little personal anecdote at the beginning of a lesson really helps pull them in. And so that's some of the things, really making those real life connections to them. So when we talked about instances of like racism, segregation, and in either literacy or social studies, we would talk about it in terms of real life experiences, and they were able to draw on so much information, and they are so much smarter than I was in 5th grade. Anyway, any other questions?
Yeah, thank you for answering that.
Yeah.
Our next question is, what are ways that you encourage yourself when work feels unfulfilling?
That's a great question. This was a really hard one for me because I seek a lot of who I am in my work. And then for the first year, I felt like work was pretty like life-giving. Like I was able to get a lot of life from my work. I was really like motivated to do work. But then all of a sudden, when work was not going well, I also, because I seek a lot of identity in my work, it was really hard for me not to feel like I'm a horrible teacher and then it would translate to other things as well. So I think that the biggest thing would be to spend time with God, even though that was really for the entire year, I really struggled with it. But even getting up 5 minutes in the morning, reading for 5 minutes, and then working from there. Other things that really helped were like taking a break. Work, even though you work for 10 months, Michael, don't worry. Those 2 months are because you work like 100-hour weeks all the time, because you go home and then you do more work at home. Like you prepare for lessons, you do all that. So you make up for it during the summer, but it's because you get no spare time during those 10 months. So enjoy those 2 months while you have it. That's also why I have so much energy right now, because I'm not doing anything right now. So it's great. But taking breaks is really important. And I mean that like seriously, because sometimes I would just not take breaks and I would go from waking up early in the morning, getting to school really early, then I'd stay at school kind of late, and then I'd go home, make a little bit of food, and then do more work. But then, especially when work is hard, that's not really a great thing where it's just like a cycle of work and you're just cycling through it like that. So taking breaks, like hanging out with friends, going and grabbing a coffee, going for a run, doing things that you find joy in, talking to somebody on the phone. But at the end of the day, it really is that you do have to go back to the word, spend time with God. And I've been learning this summer that a lot of the sins in my own heart has to do with how I view God. And it's not necessary, it does end up stemming into me, but how I view God and who God is. So that's a question that I've kind of been searching through the summer, and Grace has too, because of women's group, and to know God and who he is.
All right, thanks for that. This question is from the aspiring teachers that are here and not here in the Zoom. So how do you draw the line between professional boundaries and caring for your students, especially when they need help beyond the classroom?
That is a great question. That is probably the biggest difficulty that you will have as a teacher. You will see students that come in with the same clothes for 6 days in a row. You will see students who come in with black eyes. You will see students that come in and tell you that they wish that you were their parents, which is probably the most heartbreaking thing that I've heard as a teacher. And it made me cry because even though I love school, I loved my teachers, I had never ever said that I wish that my teacher was my parent, which shows that there's something going on at home. At the end of the day, I feel like, to be honest, I am not great at it. My heart goes out for those kids, and I to be honest, I did get reprimanded by my workplace once or twice because I would ask more questions than they fared for me to know, to really get down to the root of issues that students were having. So I think that this is a question, and this is an instance where you as a teacher would have this too, of like, I'm still learning. I don't really know the answer yet. I'm trying to learn it along with other teachers. I think it also really depends on the district that you're in too. In the DOE, there's a lot of restrictions, which definitely make it difficult. Where I went to school as a child, there were a lot less restrictions, but then again, I went to school like not a long time ago, but a little bit ago now. So I think that you really have to go back to see what your district will allow you to do. And if you are friendly with the leadership at your school, really asking questions about what you can and cannot do is really important. However, I am not an expert in this, so I'm sorry.
All right, the next one is, realistically, how much money of your own do you spend on your classroom?
Oh, that one's a great one. A lot. I've probably spent a couple $1,000 on stuff in the classroom. I definitely spend more on teaching stuff than I do on my own stuff. I think the biggest thing is that there are so many ways that you can get materials, or you can create them yourself. So that's something that I've been learning. I feel like I dropped the like $2,000, you know, I dropped a little bit of money and then I was like, oh my God, that's so much money. Why did I do that? So anyway, there are so many ways that you can be creative. There's different websites that you can do where you can try to get funds paid by people who want to help out teachers. So there's different projects that you can get funded. There's so many materials that you can make. And so that's why I kind of turned to, you know what, I'm just going to start making my own materials, especially as a special educator. So that has been really helpful too. I have my own tiny TPT store, which is a teachers pay teachers store, that I need to put more of my products in there. But it's a pretty cool organization in the sense that like it gives teachers a platform to share and then also profit from some of the goods that they're making for a cheap price to help out other teachers. You definitely need to find a balance, budget things, and look for creative solutions. There are so many different ways that you don't need to use your own money for things. And that is another lesson that I think that I learned not the super hard way, but it could have been better too.
Cool. We have 2 questions for both panelists. So the first one is, how do you make the most of your free time in the midst of a full-time job? Emily, if you can go first.
I think it's a matter of, I tried to take a Sabbath one day of the week. It's usually Saturday, actually, where I don't do any work, where I just shut off my computer, even though it is really challenging sometimes to just shut off and decompress from work. I do think that it's really important. And it does give me a day to spend time with friends or family, or even spend introvert time alone, which I will do sometimes. But I think that that's really helpful to like have a Sabbath and learn how to unplug. And it's not, yes, it is for the sense of to put God in his rightful place, and he does tell us to rest. Obviously, if God made that commandment, it was for a good reason. It's because humans cannot run on unlimited energy, like Grace would like to have. So that's why we need a Sabbath. God called us to a Sabbath because it is good for us too. And not only for us to realign our heart to his. So taking a Sabbath, I guess, would be my answer.
Great, Dennis.
During this time, it's hard to unplug. Saraja, you work with me, so you kind of know. But I do my best on after hours, just turn off the phone or put it on do not disturb, so it's out of sight, out of mind for a few hours. On the weekends, I definitely put it down, and I spend time with my kids because they demand my attention. So, and then the rest of it, you just have to look at what gives you the most joy. Aside from the Lord, right? Aside from the Lord, you just find out what gives you the most joy. If you are somebody that recharges quietly, then make sure you carve out the space to take your hikes and walks. I'm an extrovert by nature, but I'll have my introvert time, like driving to the store to pick up groceries. Like, to me, that's all the introvert time I need, and it's perfect, But I try to get value all the time. No, but yeah, but sometimes I just simply stop everything and I just sit on my couch, kind of lights dim, and just maybe listen to a hymn or read a book, or just chill or watch TV. But I try not to watch TV because TV begets more TV and begets more TV, and all of a sudden, like, it's like 3 in the morning and you just wasted hours and you've consumed junk. So.
Thanks for that. And Emily, actually, there was one question that was asked for you. Was grad school necessary for the field you're pursuing now?
Yes, yes, it was. Even though teachers, you don't go in for the money, you still need to get your master's. Can I talk a minute on it, Saraja? I did have notes on it, but I forgot about it.
Please.
Okay. So I was kind of trying to decide of when to get my master's. Was I going to get it before I taught? Was I going to get it while I was trying to teach? My mom was like, stay at school, just get it, because her biggest regret was not getting her master's. I was trying to figure out, because obviously I'm a broke college student, and I'm like, well, I kind of just can't drop another like $30,000 on schooling. So I was kind of like looking at both options. I ended up getting a full scholarship for my master's, which I don't mean it as in I am not the most intelligent person, and I don't mean that in a way of like pitying me or anything like that. I just mean that there are so many programs out there, and that there are so many free master's programs. So if you are going into teaching, like, there are free master's programs. Apply to all of them. You don't know what you will get into. So I don't mean it in the way of like, oh, woe is me. I just mean it in the way of like, you need to apply to everything and go and get that free master's, because that is a free master's is a present from the Lord. And I'm actually looking into pursuing getting a PhD. And I am trying to find it the cheap way, which is the free way.
Awesome. So the last question we have here for both of you is, how important is networking? If Dennis, if you could start off.
Networking is extremely important. Networking is just an extension of having conversations. Once again, it's like Emily was saying about being authentic, right? So networking, be authentic. Just be who you are, and just have the guts to talk to people and know what you need, right? What you can offer. So networking is hard when you are trying to do something false. You know, you're trying to network for the sake of finding something so you can just take from somebody. When you do that, you're a poor networker. But if you know, hey, I have something to offer, I just want to share about who you are, the networking is very, very easy, because you're just talking about yourself and you just genuinely want to know about someone else, right? And then through that discussion, they might tell you something that you could use and you might be of service to them. And then there you go, hence the network.
Great.
Did you want me to answer that question too, Sarah?
Yes.
Okay. So in terms of teaching, a lot of it is, I would say again, networking is very important. A lot of it is about who you know. When I got my first job, it was because somebody that I went to college with, she worked at the school. So that was already an in. So I reached out to her. I talked to her on the phone for like an hour or two. And then I went into the interview and I was so much more prepared because I had talked to her and I knew what questions were going to come up. In teaching, I feel like in terms of like, I know like there's LinkedIn profiles and stuff like that. I don't even know what I'm really talking about. And with teaching, it's a little bit different. You don't necessarily need that. But at the end of the day, in order to get into different school districts, you do usually need to know somebody. I am moving on to a different district in the fall. And surprisingly, I did not know anybody in order to get into the district. And it's a really small district. So I'm very surprised about it. So I think at the end of the day, when you're starting off in your teaching career, literally get into any school that will take you. And I don't mean that in the way of like, you have no talents or like you're not worth more, because that's definitely not true. But at the end of the day, you need something on your resume. So like, go to any school that will take you. It might be a really hard 2 years. It could be a really beautiful 2 years. Pay your 2 years dues, and then you can go to another school because you have that experience on your resume. And then you don't necessarily need to know people in the district. Sometimes if the districts are really bougie, they will be harder to get into. But I think it just depends on, it depends on the situation in those instances.
While we're on the subject of networking, if any of you guys are teachers or want to be teachers, you know, I serve on the board of the charter school. You connect with Surajit or get my email. I will put you in touch with our principal, and you know, and the rest is up to you guys. But in terms of networking, I know my school, and also I'm friends with the principal and founder of another charter school in Elmhurst, actually. So, you know, so let me know. Talking about networking. So there you go.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. And for anyone who wants to network, this is an amazing opportunity to establish one right there. Thank you so much, both. If there's any questions from anyone, if you're watching the YouTube live stream, or if you're watching the Zoom, please feel free to send them our way to your leaders so that we can ensure they get answered, whether it be through email or a few days later. There will be a delay, but we'll make sure they're answered. And yeah, if you're on the YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, as Vincent just mentioned in the chat. we're gonna go in, before we go into a time of prayer, I just want to leave some closing remarks. Today and last week was amazing in terms of the sheer content and knowledge and amount of direction pointed to God that has been provided from our panelists. And I just pray that for each and every one of you, if you have a question, please feel free to ask. No question is a bad question. And if you guys really like the panel that happened last week and this week and want to see more of this, please let us know. These type of feedback would really be helpful to know what would help you guys. And just remember to Dennis's 3 points, right? Always, and Emily's as well, to just love the Lord and always go forth in all that you do, focus on Christ's love. With that, thank you guys so much. I'm going to hand it over to Pastor Chris, actually, quickly. This was not planned, but Pastor Chris, if you would be able to describe the City to City program that I just completed right now at this project.
Yeah, I mean, actually, Simone and Amber, let's see if anybody else went through it actually as well. Yeah, Simone and Amber went through it the year before as well. Yeah, it's basically for young leaders to get kind of training and also encouragement and support so that you can go back to the local church. That's the thing that I really love about this program the most, is that it is meant to bless the local church. I mean, City to City is, you know, such an amazing organization, and I love how they really want to give back. So they want to train young leaders in churches around New York City to go back to their church and lead. And so that's kind of been an investment for us the last couple of years, is really wanting to see young leaders at Newtown be equipped, you know, and because it's just a amazing opportunity. I wish I would have had it when I was that age too, actually. It would have been, yeah, just really formative for me. Yeah, so for young leaders to have that opportunity so they can come back and serve the local church. So, and also it's for, if you know, people have visions for church planning as well and things like that. So there's actually a new cohort coming in this fall. So if you're interested in that, you need to be graduating college this year or in the workforce right now. So, you know, kind of under 28 or 29, I think the limit is. So yeah, so if you're interested, get in contact with me. So it'd be great to, yeah, I'm kind of beginning to look for another cohort in our church.
Yeah, and if you know anyone who's interested, that's just graduated college and is under 28, please let us know.
Yep.
With that, we're gonna end the live stream.